Okay, I'll just cut this beginning part out. Hello, and yes, it's been a while, but what can I say?
I died and came back to life.
I think you're gonna have to speak up a bit.
Okay.
The thing, we've said this before, okay? Sky has her schoolwork. I also got the work to do. I mean,
I have more score than your work, though.
it's because you are paranoid. You panic over every little thing. You overcommit to every little thing. I wouldn't. That's not something to be proud of.
My schoolwork is really hard, though. You've
Yeah.
seen my classes.
And your reactions to your schoolwork is, I mean, honestly, you're gonna have a breakdown.
I'm not there yet. I'm waiting.
It's gonna happen, I swear. That's what I mean. Look at Raquel. She did take
Our sis.
one of our sisters. She takes an hour class.
Yeah, but she's still
she takes an
she's
hour
at the
class.
beginning stages of stress. Like
Beginning stages?
No, like you see, what I mean is like I've already.
She had it like an
surpassed that
hour.
level.
She had it like an hour-long
She's
class.
still at the beginning.
She had like an hour-long class, or maybe like a 2, maybe 3.5 hours at most class. But then she proceeded to study for 7 hours straight. And then did it again the next day, and she didn't even get anything new. She was reading the exact same chapters.
That's just how she studies. I don't bother to mess with her system.
Her system is going to get herself hurt. Whatever, talk about getting off track. Okay, so once again, this is an episode of 10 for 10. You know, for those of you who don't know, both me and Sky love reading mangas. Whoop-de-doo, who didn't see that one coming?
I didn't.
But the thing is this, being two different people, we like two different things. I mean, granted,
There's a lot of mangas that we both like.
and we'll probably do a video on that in the future. But we decided that we wanted to talk about the mangas that we didn't share. And that the whole point of this series is that she'll force me to read 10 chapters, and with forced being the key word here, 10 chapters of a manga that she reads, and I do the same to her, forcing her to read 10 chapters of a manga that I read. So,
And then at the end of it, we give our opinions and give it a rating out of 5. And finally state, would we continue reading it? Yes or no?
okay? And also at the end we announce what we're going to read next. So, that being said, in this episode, we're going to be talking about a Yuri manga called
Yay!
Collectors. That's the one I had to read, Collectors.
So, yeah, I read Yuri.
While Sky here is going to be talking about, and I have it on screen, Koukoku no Shugosha.
It's
Also known, roughly translated into Imperial Guards.
It's a sen manga. So it's a shonen, but kind of like a shonen, but for the older male audience. 18 to 30.
Please don't start with this.
I'm not ranting yet.
No,
so
no.
let's just begin.
You have to stop it.
I'm
Otherwise,
beginning. I am beginning. It is you who is stalling.
all right then, talk about it.
Oh, the manga? Okay. So, the sen manga is... Well, it's essentially taking place in a war. We're beginning in the sense of there's a war
Tell them what
happening.
the is first, though.
I thought you didn't want me to rant.
I don't want you to rant. I want you to tell them what it is, but I want you to tell it to a normal person who has actually things to do during the day with one.
You know what's the funny part is? You always take up more time in this.
It's a showing for adults. It's a
It
showing.
can, I mean, if you wanted to put it in a nutshell, but yes, it's essentially a manga targeting young mans 18 through 30. It gets rid of a lot of the shonen cliches and focuses on more of a realistic what a man would have to
more
go
realistic,
and
more
his
mature showing.
journey to become a
Not necessarily darker or any of those things,
It's just more realistic usually.
and much more mature. Though that doesn't mean it can't be funny or silly. Like,
Well, that's if they have the comedy tag or things like that.
don't be complicated.
I'm just stating.
Don't be complicated.
Anyway, so that's essentially Sien in a nutshell. I could really go into more detail, but I won't.
Don't.
But essentially, this manga.
She wrote an essay on this stuff.
I got an A. I wrote
Like-
a speech. I got an A on it.
Which was actually quite nice, but we don't have time for that.
I need to. Okay. Anyway. But yes. I lost my train of thought. Okay, yes. So essentially, there is a war happening. It takes place in this. Where was it? The location? I think it's a fantasy location.
It's a fantasy version of Japan where they have dragons, and our protagonist is in a military unit that fights alongside with saber-toothed tigers.
So yes.
Metal. Yes.
So yes, that's essentially the military. We have their version of the Japanese, and because it's a Sen manga, it's going to take a more realistic point of view. However, because it's fantasy, it does have a lot of fantasy elements in it. For example, there's the dragons that do appear. There's the saber-toothed tigers that people are essentially their buddies in battle that will fight for them. And it does take place in this winter-like area. And the enemy army is also shown to be this, they have their own theme, more of like a medieval kind of feel, I would say. More of the sense, not completely, it's kind of like a mix of Russia and
yeah, they're like a Russia.
Medieval.
They're
it's like a mix between the two, mostly Russian. I would say that because of the fur coats.
Interestingly
enough,
in actual history of real life, there was actually a Russian-Japanese war.
There you go.
The Japanese won that war, but in this manga, well,
I would say it's too early to tell. I mean, it's pretty clear they're gonna die, but I mean, to say that they're going to lose the war is too early to tell.
Well, let's just say it this way. They're doing far, far better than the Russians did back then.
Anyway, so basically that is essentially the war, and you get to see it in a very military style. What I mean by that is extremely realistic. They go over military tactics. You do see bloodshed. You don't know who's gonna die. You don't know.
Not to mention they do discuss the chain of command.
Yes, so they do. The person who did this clearly did his research. And what I like about this manga in the sense...
Don't forget logistics.
Logistics, they did that too. So, but what I like about this manga is that the sense of if you like strategy, if you like war, if you like history, or if you just like fantasy but hate it when they go unrealistic, like
you are the chosen one.
Chosen one, or main character comes in and suddenly the sword has chosen you for a reason.
With the power of friendship and my glowing friendship fist,
I will zap you. You know, or stuff like that that just really will annoy you pretty soon after a while of getting into fantasy stories.
Or an impossibly pure hero.
Oh yeah, or like a hero's like, he's like literally the heavens could trying to beam on him.
Just put a halo on his head.
You might as well at this rate. So
Call him Saint Protagonist.
But yeah, essentially it doesn't do any of that. It's very realistic, but just happens to have some fantasy elements.
Which I think does it nicely.
Yeah, so it actually feels so realistic that, honestly, I told my bro this. If tigers, saber-toothed tigers, like we had them still, and dragons were real, and we had them, I would believe, if someone told me this is in the history books, I would say yes. I would say honestly, yeah, of course they were in the history books. This is natural. So that's how realistic it feels. Now, here's some things you need to know. Our main character is not like any other main character. He's messed up.
Big time.
But for good reasons. He's in a war where he doesn't know if he's going to live or die. And so as a result, he has no problem sacrificing people. And he is thinking of you don't know if he enjoys the war sometimes or does he hate it. Most of the time it looks like he enjoys bloodshed, but then there are a few moments where he looks like he deeply regrets what he's in. So you're really not sure about his mental state. Now this is me talking within a 10 chapter range.
You know, if I were to give my 10 cents, I would say...
Don't you mean 2 cents? Isn't it 2 cents? Like, I'm going to give my 2 cents?
My thoughts are more valuable. 5 times more valuable. But I would argue that the reason why you can't tell whether he seems to like it or not is that he's in a position where he has to like it, or else he'll just go mad from the horror.
Like, yes, it could be debated that. And also, there's also this weird thing where it looks like he's madly in love with his sister.
Okay, I admit that was weird.
But and we're never quite made it clear if it's his biological sister or his someone who's like a sister to him. But what's really weird is that she is married and has a kid. and he's still fantasizing over her.
Yeah, war. It does things to you.
I guess, but I mean, you would have thought he found another woman by now. I don't know. But the thing is, this is within a 10 chapter range, so they really don't go into much detail. Just enough so you know he does want to have sex with her. They make it clear.
Wait a second.
Anyway, and so, yeah, it's weird, but the manga is still great, and they do go into detail of the war. You will see bloodshed, you will see people losing kind of their mind and having to make tough decisions.
Did you get to the chapter where they have to attack their own village?
No, they didn't get that in the 10 chapter range. So there you go, in future chapters they attack their own village. What I do also like is that in the enemy army, it's being led by a female. It is a woman who is the queen of her own country.
Princess, technically.
You know, you told me she was the queen, but
No,
they
I
haven't
said-
released her princess title yet because she keeps saying it.
Yeah.
Which is it?
Honestly, I can't remember anymore.
Okay, let's just, for the sake, sum it up.
I imagine that since she's there instead of her own country, that she's actually a princess, because no one would allow the queen to go someplace, would go to personally lead an army like that to a foreign country. I mean, that's just horrible decision making right
I don't
there.
know. They did it all the time in the past. I mean, not with queens.
And
but
look how
like
that
with,
turned
like,
out.
leaders.
And look how that turned out.
Anyway, that doesn't matter. The point is, you have this female that she's leading, but it's not like, hey, I'm here to boost the morale of the soldiers or something stupid like that. Not only is she dressed appropriate for battle, she knows what she's doing.
She is banging one of her knights, though.
Why wouldn't you?
No, but like, not only is she doing it, but it's actually part of his royal title now. The princess's lover. It's
Yeah, but I
actually
mean-
in his job description right now.
I wouldn't be surprised, though. Think about it. You're in war. You have, like,
No,
a
this was
bunch
even
of-
before the war.
it doesn't make a difference. The point is, I'm not surprised she found someone that she likes, and she's going to take with him to war, and then she's going to have fun with him.
And throw him in the front line.
Yeah, they're gonna die in battle. It's gonna be totally romantic for them, I guess.
Caramba.
The point is, I actually liked it. I liked the fact that she was seen as powerful, threatening, wasn't weak, but her bodyguard wasn't there as in, I'm here to shield you from the danger. You can clearly tell he was there as her equal. I mean, clearly she still has authority over them. If she tells him to leave, he will do it. But you can tell that he sees her as an equal in the battlefield. So I really did enjoy that you can see those dynamics. You can see those elements. Here's some negatives. This is really a manga that is really up for specific taste. If you're a person who loves strategy, loves realistic settings, but don't want it in a real world, this is for you. If you are not into battles or hearing strategies or going into details, very good details of things, then once again, this isn't for you.
Let me put it this way. If you're the kind of person who likes their hero to just shout, let's go kick some butt, break down a door, and do all that stuff,
And then things work out beautifully.
then, I mean, not to say that you won't like this, but if you want the hero to be always doing that, then you won't like this at all. No, this is a guy that he can't do it, and he knows that if he tries to do it, he and all his men will be slaughtered in a hail of bullets.
And so he has to like choose which men does he want. It's kind of a mean thing to do, but when you're in a battle, it makes sense. And anyone who does strategy games or thinks strategy-wise knows that.
He knows. Sometimes you
You have to make
sacrifice.
sacrifices.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. What do you want? Do you want to win, or do you want everyone to live?
You have to understand something about our hero here. He is not put in position where the position he in isn't a position to win the war. That's not his job. Okay? He had a job, and unfortunately his job makes things very difficult for him for what they're expecting. And his main priority is to survive, for as many of them to survive as possible. But he knows full well that most of them, if not all of them, are going to get killed in the line of duty.
So yes, that's what I have to say about the manga. I do think it's a great manga. For anyone who likes those specific things, it would be a great manga for you. This is not for a child. If you are a young kid, back off. If you are older and mature, go ahead. I would give it a rating of 4.5. This is because I'm including those weird incest moments which got it deducted.
Also, she doesn't like giving fives for anything.
I am really stubborn with my fives. I think if it was a perfect manga, I feel like then I would give it, but even then I may hold back just because I feel like there has to be something wrong with it. I just haven't found it yet. That's just how
That's
I
a
am.
mean thing to do.
It's just how it is, though. Like, no story is perfect.
All right, then.
But yes, would I read it? Will I continue reading it? I don't think so. This is just not my cup of tea. Not because of the gore or anything like that. It's just I'm really not into strategies that much. It's just not my cup of tea. That's all. I think it's still a great manga.
All right, now, the manga I was reading is called Collectors. Once again, it's a Yuri manga. But the thing is this, they're not young high school girls. No, they're adult women out of college.
That's because it's a Joshin, which is like a shoujo for older women.
Yeah, same thing with the seinen,
More realistic,
mature,
older women,
more mature.
more realistic setting.
So, yeah, you see, that's easy. But, okay, I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to like this one. I really did. In fact, after I was done with the first chapter, I honestly believed I was not just gonna like it, that I was going to love it. Because one of the characters dropped one of the funniest lines I've ever heard. But before I get into that, let's talk about the story itself. So, once again, it's about two women. Their names, can't remember them.
Just call them by description. One is into fashion, one is into books.
One collects clothes, one collects books.
And we do mean collect them.
Really badly. I mean,
I don't think they
have a trouble. Now I need to get into what the style this story is. It's in a style known as four koma, or I could be pronouncing it horribly wrong, but basically it's 4 panels with the 4th one being a joke, and the other 3 panels all leading up to a joke.
Yeah, that's usually how it is. Some sort of cliffhanger moment, some sort of like ending moment. Usually in form of a joke.
Panel 1, we talk. Panel 2, we talk a little more. Panel 3, usually something happens. 4th panel, joke. Now, which isn't bad, okay? There's a lot of things you can do with just 4 panels, especially in a manga series where you have, well, let's face it, you can put in many chapters, and you can use these panels and use these jokes to build up the characters. But with Collectors, here's the thing, okay? I didn't like it. In fact, the more I read, the harder time I had reading it, because the more I kept disliking it. And it wasn't even doing anything bad. But the thing was, it was just stuck there in one place. There didn't feel like to be anything going on. And the more I read, the more I had a harder time believing that the 2 women were anything more than just friends with benefits.
I think you only see them have sex once, and by that I mean you don't see it.
I mean, there's one chapter, there's one part where they show that they really are thinking about each other. We're like, hey, you know what? I should finish my work early. Maybe we can have time, go on vacation. And they're thinking about it, and that was a sweet moment, and I loved it. But it only happened once during those 10 chapters. Moments like that just disappeared completely afterwards. It was more, I couldn't see any real relationship. And the more I read the story, the more I realized something. These women had absolutely no reason to be in a relationship with each other. They're not into the same things at all. They have different opinions about it. They're like, in real life, these 2 women wouldn't even look at each other.
They'd be the most friends who wouldn't talk about a lot of stuff.
Acquaintances at best. Heck, when we even read the chapter that shows how they even met in the first place, it's the book collector trying to find out the name of the clothing collector from a friend of hers, only to find out that she already knew the woman. She just didn't even know she knew her because she had a haircut. And while that's funny, but it does speak volumes about the relationship. Like, a simple haircut was all you needed to forget about her.
I think it's because of the fact is, like, in many mangas, they seem to believe that if people just take off your glasses, like, you take off your glasses. Oh my gosh!
I'm Stefano.
Who are you? And then they put on the glasses, and it's like, oh, there you are.
But what can I say? But I will give it some credit. Like, the problem I have with many Yuri mangas, okay, and this is in general, and I would like to believe that this is also in the minority, but many of the Yuri mangas I come across apparently live in a world where everyone's homosexual.
That's with Yuri, Yaoi, and Shonen AI and Shoujo AI.
It's like if you meet a character, if they meet another character, guarantee you that guy's also gay.
I hate it when they do.
And it's like, and it's not real.
Unless, of course, it's in a gay bar. That's okay.
You know, like you have to. These like here's the thing, okay? A willing suspension of disbelief. Okay, when you read a story, whether you realize it or not, you are giving it certain passes. For instance, the story that we talked about just now, Imperial Guards. Saber-toothed tigers are extinct. Dragons don't exist, period. Heck, they were even psychics.
There you go.
Psychic monks.
I remember that.
With weird plate.
Didn't they have like an... No, wait, it was
Jewel.
like a jewel piece on their head. I was about to say an arrow. I was thinking the Avatar.
But we give it, but...
We let it pass because within every
'Cause
story has
everything
their
else
own
makes-
rule.
Everything else makes sense within their own rule, within
Their own story,
continuity.
their own rule.
Okay? So, back to collectors, one thing that I really liked about this from the beginning was that she had friends that weren't homosexual. Heck, one of them even gets married.
To a man.
But then this is something I noticed.
I thought it was cute.
The man disappears completely from the story.
That's
Granted, he was never really a character there. We get introduced to him, we get married, and I thought he would show up more often. There was no reason for him not to show up.
Like, you could have showed up to pick her up or to give her a phone call.
You know, he could have been the fourth panel joke.
Or she could have gone to see him.
But not only does he not appear anymore, they don't even talk about the marriage. It never comes up. And then, later on in those 10 chapters, I noticed that the author kept putting that married woman along with this other woman, and they kept putting them next to each other. Over and over again, really close. And
It's like she's trying to ship them.
And then I had to actually go back just to be like, wait. But she's married to a man.
It's not that they were doing anything, it's just that they kept being next to each other.
They just like, I had to remember, like, heck, I thought it's like, hey, look, it's couple B. Wait a second. And that bothered me. Heck, the joke in chapter 1. Okay? They're talking about clothes. Those clothing collector. Hey, book collector. What would you like me to wear? It doesn't matter what you wear after you take it off.
Bow chicka wow wow.
And that was hilarious. But then the manga takes that joke and plays it seriously. That clothing collector got seriously hurt because of this. And then later on, we find out more about clothing collector. And we find out that she's an accountant, some sort of accountant for a father's company, and that she's apparently really good at her job, but she spends a fortune on clothes.
That's easy. A lot of people are good with other finances. It's just she's not matching their money.
And after that, we don't get any more. After that, but that's the only character development we've seen so far. I mean, this is a 4 coma. I mean, granted, character development is never a big deal, but if you want to put people, make it feel as if they're in an actual relationship, then you're going to have to do some character development, and you can do it. Heck, just to make it worse. In another chapter, they dropped the 4-panel thing completely. And they gave a straight chapter in a very standard manga format, and it was easily the best chapter of the 10 that I read. And yes, it was the one where she was trying to find out, hey, who's that chick? Why did I say it was the best even though I was complaining about what was going on? Because in that one, not only did we have a joke that was actually pretty funny, but we actually got to see some character development and got to understand their relationships, or to really get some idea of who they know and how they know them. You know, there was actually a little bit of character development there, and I honestly think that should have been the direction the story took. That they should have dropped the 4-panel things, because the jokes weren't even that funny. At all. I couldn't stand the story at all.
What I wanted, the reason why I chose this manga, which I will note happens to be one of my favorite Yuri mangas, and I'm aware of these problems. So why on earth would I give him this manga to show something that I actually enjoy? Because I wanted him to see the problems that are usually in Yuri mangas. Usually in Yuri mangas, that's how it is. Two girls, they're supposed to be in love, but you kind of have to remind me of that because certainly I didn't see that. You could have easily told me they were friends. We're told they have some sort of development, but we really don't see it. What is it? The other characters can be gay sometimes, or you don't see much of the other characters. The story happens to be little to nothing. And if we do get to see the characters actually do couple things, because it's a Yuri manga, we should be allowed to have more flexibility. We should be allowed to see stuff. We usually don't get to see anything. Which is fine if you're not interested. But honestly, I think it's something that should be shown. Because it's supposed to be a couple and it's supposed to be for an older audience who is viewing this. So we should be allowed to see something. But we don't. And if we do see something, then it's not from here, like, oh, you see them go away to their bed or whatever. I see a little here and there. No, it's either nothing at all or full blown out, which at that point is usually accompanied with an ecchi or smut.
In other words, just flat out porn.
So it's like, where is the stories? Because I think this has so much potential for stories.
It could have been far better. It could have been far, far better.
So I think, however, it's still one of the better ones because this one actually did try to do some good things. But I wanted him to read this manga because I believed he had some misconceptions of what some Yuri mangas were putting. So I wanted him to give him this one so he could see the huge mistakes that are most common in Yuri mangas. And I think that the fact that he saw those things, I think he now understands my frustration.
Honestly, this thing only confirmed
I can show you
my general dislike for these sort of stories.
I can find, however, I know an author, however, who does really good ones. But I'm not going to give you those ones yet. So, too bad.
I mean, honestly. But, yeah, out of this one, I'm going to have to give it
it's okay.
a 2 out of 5, to be honest. I would not read it again.
I understand.
Like, honestly, this is a manga that just has so much missed potential, in my opinion. It could have been so much better.
It could have.
But that said, I never liked these kinds of mangas to begin with. So, you want to read one, then try reading this one. You know, maybe you'll like it far better than I did. There.
It does have a lot of good things about it, which is why I still read it. But there's also huge problems with it, which is why I gave it to him. Typically not something that he was thinking I would do, give him a manga purposely so he wouldn't enjoy it. But not in a cruel way, just so he can see the mistakes.
Alright, so for this next one, for next week, we'll be reviewing...
He'll be reviewing the manga called The Summit.
The Summit?
The Summit. It's the, and then it's SUMMIT.
Summit.
The Summit. Which is a yaoi. But, I'm going to emphasize the but, you will not see anything until chapter 40 something. It is very much censored, and they don't even kiss until around chapter 15. And you will not see anything. Really, only maybe their stomachs and back. Maybe a butt. That's about it.
You're really asking to
I'm giving you this one because I think you will enjoy the main character.
Okay then. Now, as for me, and I have it right here.
He's having it because he doesn't remember the title.
She will be reading a manga that I discovered, that I found recently. Gaku Gorashi, also known as School Live. This is the story of a bunch of girls who live in the live in school club. And then you realize that the story is actually a hell of a lot darker than you think it is. But I mean this in the best way possible.
I think this will be a week of kind of being mean a little to each other, just because it
No.
sounds like we're being mean. But that's not our intention for either one.
I honestly think that you'll like this one.
And I think he will really like the main character.
But, okay.
The manga I chose. I think he will really like it.
But yeah, until next time, I'm Brig.
I'm Sky.
And if you enjoy this, then like, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Till next time.